October vote on Alberta separation? Not so fast as a judge slams the brakes. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Is that it for the referendum on Alberta separation? Not if the Alberta Premier has anything to say about it.
Well, although our government does support Alberta remaining in Canada, we think that today's decision by the court will deny opportunity to well over 300,000 Albertans to have their petition verified by Elections Alberta. We think that this decision is incorrect in law and anti-democratic, and we will be appealing it as a result.
A defiant Alberta Premier Danielle Smith promising to challenge a ruling by a justice of the Alberta Court of King's Bench that struck down a petition aimed at triggering a referendum this fall on Alberta's separation from Canada. The court ruled that First Nations must be consulted on any decision to call a referendum on separation, and that failing to do so violates Indigenous peoples' treaty rights. Premier Smith said she would be meeting with her cabinet next to decide what to do, but an appeal is certain.
It is a single judge who's made a decision, and we have now 700,000 Albertans, whether they're on the Remain side or the Leave side, who've said that they want to have this public debate. So our citizen initiative petition was always meant to be very permissive, and we kept on having to modify it to ensure that that permissive quality was in there. We want to hear from Albertans. That's what we think democracy is. And we'll be meeting with our caucus and cabinet to further review the decision and decide next steps. But as I say, since we believe that this one is incorrect in law and anti-democratic, we will be appealing it.
It was just last week that Stay Free Alberta, the pro-separation group that led the petition drive, announced it had collected more than 300,000 signatures. But the validation process was up in the air because of this court challenge from 4 First Nations, with all of them making the case that an independence vote would violate Treaty 6, 7, and 8 rights. Alberta's NDP leader, Naheed Nenshi, congratulated those First Nations on their victory.
We've had a judge quash the Premier's Separatist Friends referendum. First Nations fought for us. They fought for Canada. They continue to fight for Alberta and for Canada in a way this government refuses to do. They spent a lot of time, they spent a lot of money on these court challenges for a government that is at best indifferent to Indigenous peoples and at worst actively working against their interests. And I want to specifically thank the Athabasca Chippewa First Nations, my brothers and sisters in the Blackfoot Confederacy, and the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation for standing for all Albertans, for doing this hard work. It's been one of the great honors of my life to work with First Nations over the last 15 years of my life, especially in this last year. If you'd asked me a year ago, would the thing that unites all First Nations be standing up in defense of the colonial government? I probably wouldn't have said yes. But if you'd asked me a year ago, would First Nations be leading the fight for a better Alberta and for a better Canada? I always knew they would have.
Mr. Nenshi would go on to say that there's no way there can be a referendum on Alberta separation this fall, claiming that would be illegal. When asked if she thought separation could still be up for a vote this fall, Premier Smith couldn't confirm that would be the case.
We make our decisions in government through a process that includes committees, through cabinet, as well as through caucus. And so my caucus has just learned of this decision. It just came down while we were in the legislature and haven't had a time to get together and discuss what our next steps will be. The committee has been meeting to look at the Forever Canada petition and to offer some suggestions about what should be done with that one as well. But we haven't made a decision yet. But I can tell you on this case in particular, this judgment, we think that there has been an error in law, which is why we're going to be appealing it. And we think it's anti-democratic. We want to make sure that that citizens who participate in good faith in this process have an expectation that the Elections Alberta is going to validate their signatures. That's been stopped in this case, and that's part of the reason why we're going to appeal. But we'll have more to say once I have had a chance to talk with Cabinet and Caucus.
As the Premier mentioned, there is another petition called the Forever Canada petition. More than 400,000 people signed that pro-Canada petition, but it's been holed up in a committee of the Smith government. The organizer of that petition drive was Tom Lukasik.
The Premier has to make a choice. Is she going to follow the law? And is she going to do what's good for Alberta? Or is she going to do what's politically expedient for her as a Premier and a party leader?
Mr. Lukasik wants his question to be voted on by members in the Alberta legislature. Premier Smith said her government is still considering its options for that particular petition.
The proponent of that petition always intended for it to go to a referendum. He was quite clear that he, under the old rules, he felt that by putting that petition in, it would block any other petition of a similar nature from going forward. He did also do numerous media interviews talking about the referendum. It's actually written into the body of the question that he believes that there needs to be a referendum on this. And so that is what the committee is grappling with right now, since he seemed to have flip-flopped and changed his mind after the fact. So I'm letting the committee do its work. They've had a chance to be able to talk to officials and lawyers, and I'll be consulting with them on what they think the path forward should be on that particular one.
Alberta politics and the province's relationship with Ottawa has been a dominant news story this week. That will remain the case tomorrow, when Prime Minister Carney will arrive in Alberta and make an announcement alongside Premier Smith about the industrial carbon tax and a possible pipeline project to British Columbia. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
With my friend on the right side of things, Michael Taube is back with us. He's a columnist with the National Post, Loonie Politics, Troy Media. He was a speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Welcome back. Good to hear from you.
It's good to hear from you as well. Hope you're feeling well, which is important too.
Yes, I am feeling much better. Thank you very much,
Good.
Michael. Prime Minister Mark Carney wants to privatize airports. Now there are reports he might want to privatize the container ports. I have to suggest, this is just my own opinion, if a conservative prime minister, say Pierre Poilievre, was proposing any of this, Liberals would be losing their minds. Okay, Liberals would quite possibly be losing their minds. But it's Prime Minister Carney, so, it's brilliant. But I must ask you, is any of it reminiscent for you of, say, Prime Minister Brian Mulroney's push to privatize Crown corporations, as he did with many of them in the 1980s?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly some similarities there. I mean, we have to see, obviously, whether Carney goes through with these plans or is just talk at this stage. He talks a good game. It's just a question of what the results are. But, yeah, I mean, it is certainly, I wouldn't say eerily similar, but it is somewhat similar because a lot of conservatives for many years in this country, even when the old Progressive Conservative Party was still around, were always bothered by the fact that not that there were Crown corporations, that they basically just had so much power and there were just so many of them. So he, Mulroney worked really hard on that and actually in many ways paved the way to make the system better, to the point that even my old friend and boss, Stephen Harper, and the things that he did, didn't have to go after them quite as much. And no Liberal prime minister even, who has a bit of a fiscal edge, will have to do it either. So, yes, there is an interesting similarity to it. Again, the difference is we're talking about airports and seaports rather than, say, Crown corporations. But it does ring similar. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back, after Mulroney left, Kim Campbell took over, and her ill-fated government attempted to privatize airports, and that was a big thing for the Chrétien Liberals. They said they would not do that, and in part help them win the election in '93, right, Michael? If I recall.
Well, it certainly did not hurt. I mean, obviously, I think also
Didn't
the
hurt.
fact that the Mulroney government,
the writing was on the wall by that point. Yeah.
That's the bigger issue. But yeah, I mean, certainly things like that. And also as well, just to be fair, quickly, it wasn't natural for someone like Kim Campbell to do it. Yes, I know she came from the old BC Social Credit Party, but she was always on the moderate side. So when she was talking a good game about doing that, it didn't sound realistic just based on the way she was.
Dare I even suggest it maybe even has a scent of probably one of your political heroes, the great Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher. She had a massive privatization push in the UK, Michael.
Yeah, she did. She actually, I forget the exact number, it was certainly over 35 to 40, might have been even higher. A whole bunch of state-owned businesses were basically privatized by Margaret Thatcher at that time. British Airways was certainly one. Just thinking off the top of my head. British Gas, British Telecom. There were a bunch of them, and yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to create a line from what Carney is suggesting to what Margaret Thatcher did. But yes, at the time when Thatcher said this, this was the United Kingdom, if you wish to call that, or Britain, what term you want to use, had gone sort of back and forth with Labour governments and Conservative governments when it came to nationalization. Look how many times the banks were nationalized and denationalized by several governments. So when Thatcher came in and basically said she was going to wield a big sword and really start hammering away at state-owned businesses, a lot of people just sort of laughed and thought, well, she can only go so far. But to her credit, she did go very far. And, whether you believe it or not, whether you like it or not, she made the British economy, the economy of the United Kingdom, much, much better in the process because there was less reliance on the public sector and far more on the private sector. And as you know, I and others favor privatization, and we believe that's the better model to use. But again, is it similar to Carney? There's tones of it, certainly too. But again, the proof is in the pudding. If Carney moves forward on this
proof
stuff,
is in the pudding.
We'll be able to compare.
Yeah. Okay, but some people might say, okay, here we go. Here's more evidence that Mark Carney is not truly, say, a progressive liberal. Maybe he's more of a blue liberal, more of a blue business-minded liberal. And he might even be a conservative. I know you don't think he's a conservative, but
absolutely not.
Why? Absolutely not. No, this is a very conservative thing, like privatizing airports, privatizing, even floating the idea. Maybe it's a trial balloon. I don't know. Privatizing container ports. That would be a very conservative thing.
Jean Chrétien also proposed conservative things, and he was not. Roy Romano did conservative things in Saskatchewan. He was a New Democrat. Obviously, you can bridge certain elements, and you can sort of match up different designs and stuff. The history of Mark Carney, and I've written about it quite a lot. He's not a progressive conservative with the quotations on progressive and conservative. He is basically a progressive, and you have to look at his history and what he believes in, the books that he's written, the idea he's proposed about the environment, about net zero emissions, the fact that he was supportive of the Own Wall Street, movement as well, or not terribly negative about it. He's talked about things including, tax rates being changed for the wealthy. Those are not conservative things. Sure. Is he an opportunist? Does he realize that this could be to his benefit? Yeah, absolutely. Does he realize that he is doing well in the polls and that the Conservatives are struggling right now and he's been sort of picking apart pieces of their platform at will and taking them as his own? Yeah, for sure he's done that. But does that mean that he is a conservative, progressive conservative, or any sort of right-leaning person? No, because his history shows that he's not, and that's the key.
All right, when we come back with you, I know you're taking it all in, all the political drama out of the UK.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think is ahead for. Is he still Prime Minister? I haven't checked in the last hour. Is Keir Starmer still the Prime Minister? Okay. Michael Taube is with us. Does Keir Starmer survive this? It doesn't look like he's going to survive it. Reform UK is the party right now with all the momentum in that country. When we come back, this is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with Michael Taube, who's with us every Thursday. The House of Commons in Canada is not sitting this week or next. So for political junkies, there's been a void. But thankfully, we have the UK political situation right now, which is really, for me, filling that void. It's just been filled with a drama. Prime Minister Keir Starmer won a massive majority government for the Labour Party just a year and a half ago. He has now lost in excess of 90 MPs.
Yes.
And I think, I'm not sure the precise amount of cabinet ministers, but many, including one today. His health secretary has resigned, someone who is seen as a possible replacement for Keir Starmer, a fellow named Wes Streeting.
Right.
Do you think this is are we in the maybe the final days now of Prime Minister Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom? What do you think?
I mean, it certainly looks like that. He's fighting for his political life. You said it correctly. He was elected in July of 2024. It's roughly about a year and a half. His Labour Party won 411 out of 650 seats in the British Parliament. That's a massive majority. It's a super majority, as we call it. And he is fighting for his political life as we speak. And sure, I'm not suggesting that he might not survive it. He may. But it is astonishing to watch this. And it's coming to the point now where, as you correctly said, a lot of his senior cabinet ministers are resigning, including Wes Streeting, for the health minister, just today. And initially, obviously, it was junior ministers and backbenchers who were pushing back, which is understandable. But the frustration is astonishing. And there's a lot of it. I mean, we could go through we don't have time, but there's obviously many, many issues that brought Labour to this point, and just, bad governance, bad leadership from Starmer, et cetera. But the big kick, the real kick, has been the local elections that were held in the UK last week. And Andrew Neil, who is a radio host and a columnist for the Daily Mail, used to be the chairman of the Spectator magazine. He gathered all these numbers together. Others have too. I just happened to pick up that post. Here's a basic idea of the 136 English councils counted really quickly. Labour lost 1,496 seats total from those 136 councils. That's enormous. Wow. The Reform UK and Niall Farage, as you point out, they gained 1,451 seats, which is almost a wash of the two. You can also include the fact that the Greens won 441 seats, the Tories lost 563 seats, the Lib Dems got 155, et cetera, et cetera. The point being, Labour lost an enormous amount of seats in these local elections. And remember, local politics is really, a big thing. Everything local matters in the political process, including in the UK. And people are just flipping out, and understandably so. For a lot of Labour ministers and others, they think that their job's on the line, their careers might be over, and they're going to obviously blame the person who's most likely behind it, and that's always the figurehead, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. And that's why we're looking at what we're looking at now.
Okay. Great to hear from you this week, Michael. Thank you. Always good.
My pleasure. Take care.
That's columnist Michael Taube. Focus Nova Scotia, our Newsday panel, coming up next on News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
It's time for our Thursday Newsday panel. That means it's time for Focus Nova Scotia. Joining us today, Lisa Blackburn, former Halifax City Councillor and NDP candidate. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, welcome back, Rob. Glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very kind of you. Jordi Morgan is Director of Strategic Growth and Partnerships at Enterprise Canada. He's a last-minute call-up today. Matt Wynot is... Thank you again, Jordi. Matt Wynot is in Winnipeg at a Canadian Labour Congress event, and he's apparently been called in to cast some kind of vote on something, so he had to forgo his appearance this week, but we'll have him on again soon. Great to hear from you, Jordi. Thank you again.
Hey, Rob. Thanks. Happy to be here.
That's good. So I want to start with the buzz in Ottawa. Mr. Carney was asked about this today at his news conference in Ottawa. But look, the Port of Halifax is one of the busiest and most important ports in Canada. It employs thousands of people. And the buzz in Ottawa is that it could soon have a for sale sign on it, that the Carney Liberals are thinking of privatizing the country's container ports. Jordi Morgan, what do you think of this idea? There's going to be public consultations about it.
Well, yeah, I think, I don't see any potential difficulties in having a discussion around it. And one of the things about the discussion here is very generally it goes to, oh, well, we're going to sell our ports and somebody's going to buy them, and we're going to lose an important asset. I think the idea is that the Prime Minister is floating is just looking for ways to leverage more private capital in these maybe add some commercial discipline. I'm not entirely sure what's broken that needs to be fixed, other than the federal treasury, which is looking for ways to sell assets and perhaps spend it on other things. If that's what's pushing this along, then you can sort of understand that, given the amount of money that's going out the door in Ottawa and what's coming in, that they would be looking to find ways to leverage certain assets, in the same way that they're talking about it with the airport. But I think the conversation is fine as long as there's a very high level of transparency and that the public interest is looked after, because these are extraordinarily important pieces of public infrastructure in not just Halifax, but across the country. And any kind of idea about privatization should be taken very carefully and transparently and thoughtfully.
Yeah, Tonda McCharles had this in the Toronto Star today. Quote, the government is open to and seeking a report on the potential amalgamation of certain unnamed key ports in Canada and divestiture of others, i.e. sale. It calls for an overhaul the way port authorities are governed, like the Halifax Port Authority, in order to create a more business-focused governance framework. What do you think of that, Lisa?
Yeah, and privatization doesn't automatically mean disaster. There have been many countries that have brought in private capital to improve efficiency, technology, to bring about expansion even. But certainly the public needs answers. Does Canada still control security decisions? Would foreign investors be allowed? Those are just some of the questions that come to my mind automatically. And let's face it, ports are natural monopolies, right? It's, unlike a coffee shop, you just can't open up another deep water port across the street. So, right. This is a geographic asset with huge strategic value. And once ownership or long-term control shifts, then it's pretty hard to unwind that back, right? So this is more than just an economic decision. It's an actual decision on sovereignty as well. And, I think you could certainly forgive us here in Nova Scotia for being a little gun-shy when it comes to assets leaving local control, because we have certainly seen this. It doesn't mean that private investment is automatically bad, but certainly in Nova Scotia, we're going to want some guarantees. We're still debating the privatization of Nova Scotia Power, and that took place in 1992. So, a lot of the same things are still being said now that were being said then. It's more than just cranes and containers. There's hazardous cargo out there. There's environmental monitoring, cybersecurity, labor safety. And none of this is fear mongering. This is just basic governance. So that's certainly what I comes to mind to me when the talk of privatizing the port of Halifax comes up.
What about the airport in Halifax, Stanfield International? What about that, Lisa? I mean, the government would still control things like NAV Canada, the security in the airport, regulating airlines, of course, but the facility itself for the air traveler would, if it was open to private investment, would be privately run. What do you think of an idea like that? Because that's what they're looking at.
And I think some of the same, especially security concerns, that would certainly be a major concern for me as well. It's more than just a place that people go to catch flights, right? This is the tourism gateway for the province. It's the cargo and business hub, and it also serves critical roles during medical transfers, military logistics, that sort of thing. So that certainly does make it different. This is different than privatizing a parking garage or a convention center. So, the big security concerns are top of mind for me.
What do you think of that, privatizing airports? Because they're looking at that too, Jordi. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm not sure that Stanfield's on the hit list on that one. Some of the bigger airports are obviously Pearson and Vancouver and Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto, or I should say Ottawa. But and I think Billy Bishop's in that mix as well in what they're talking about. I think
that's part of it.
I think the discussion is fine, but there's already a hybrid model in place. It's not, again, this comes around to what's the reason you're doing this? Like, why? And what's broken that needs fixing? And why is it that you feel that, you need to unlock this capital? If you're talking about investment that's being made in modernization, I think there was just a $3 billion agreement at Pearson to upgrade a lot of passenger-facing stuff. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is what sort of impact is it going to have on passengers? Like, what is the flying experience going to be like? And unless you can very clearly state through whatever research you're doing that there is some demonstrable benefit to the aviation using public or, the commercial interests that actually are using the airport, then, what is it that you're trying to fix that is broken other than trying to unlock some capital for the federal government? There's a lot of ways to balance the budget. And, if you were able to actually privatize and unlock that capital, maybe, you'd be able to generate enough money to do a light rail line between Montreal and Toronto. But I guess that's just a coincidence.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. When we come back, I want to turn our attention to the long-term care workers strike into its 5th week now. This is Focus Nova Scotia. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
With Focus Nova Scotia, Lisa Blackburn with us, former Halifax City Councillor, NDP candidate. Jordi Morgan, Director, Strategic Growth and Partnerships at Enterprise Canada. Long-term care strike by CUPE members is into its 5th week. More and more workers keep joining the picket lines every week. Construction on new long-term care homes has been halted because of those strikes. Lisa, what do you think of this strike and how long it's lasted here? How's the government handling it, in your opinion?
Well, I hope that the government is looking at this as more than just a wage dispute, because I think this is really a system warning light that's going off. The striking workers, they're everything from the continuing care assistants to the dietary staff, laundry and housekeeping, maintenance. This is basically everybody who keeps the residents clean, fed, medicated, and safe. Government are becoming more and more difficult for the government because the strike keeps growing. Families are now speaking out publicly about the level of care that their loved ones are getting. And the residents' care concerns are becoming front page news stories. So, that's where the risk begins for the government. And, I don't think that most Nova Scotians believe that the folks that are providing the care, bathing their parents, getting them out of bed, comforting them, I don't think they believe that they should be working for wages that don't keep up with the cost of living. If we say seniors deserve dignity, then I think the people providing that dignity deserve dignity in their own right.
Jordi Morgan, what do you think?
Look, nobody likes being out on a picket line, and nobody likes being a part of whatever this argument is that CUPE has with the provincial government. There are agreements across a whole bunch of other unions of people doing exactly the same work. So where the government is stuck on this, and I think it's pretty clear, is that, with the existing agreements that they have with other unions, that if whatever the number is that they come in, if it's higher than that, if it's not aligned with what the other agreements have, then all of the other unions sort of look and go, well, wait a minute. Because there is, this then becomes another larger problem, and it's a self-escalating issue, right?
Yeah, it's the Me Too. It's the Me Too thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the other, one of the problems is that the investment in the long-term care system in Nova Scotia was it deteriorated over a long period of time, and there's a lot of catch-up. part of the catch-up around that are very large capital investments being made, something in the tune of, I think, $876 million is allocated this year in terms of, they've made a big commitment to build a lot of places because the need is there. And, we can go into a long discussion about the demographics and why the need is there and yada, yada, yada. But really, it was neglected for so long, the infrastructure, and it was creating some very, very significant and immediate problems. So there's that to deal with. There is the other healthcare system. There is, there's cost of living issues. And I think that the government, though, however, is stuck with the fact that we've got all these agreements with these other unions. CUPE is saying, no, our members deserve more. I'm not exactly sure what that argument is founded upon. And then you've got the people in the middle, who are these poor people who are either standing out in the street, with a picket sign and getting strike pay, or the people that are in these homes who are not being, I think, served at a level where there is a level of service that is necessary to be maintained in these homes. It's not like they close the door and leave these people alone but there is an expectation of a certain level that families have. So you're going to get the media stories of, mom's not, she's miserable and blah, it becomes people get very empathetic around it. But it's not. This is not necessarily just an emotional issue, or it's not the government being horrible to anybody. It's they're saying, look, we have to balance what we have in the kitty to look after this thing, and you have other interests who are sitting there saying, well, a living wage is X. Well, okay, I get the living wage argument, but we have, a living wage is an arbitrary decision made by advocates who say that that's what a living wage is based on from a data perspective. There are a lot of people that are making less than that and a lot of people that are making more, of course. That's maybe an argument for another day. But I would, I'm not saying that, the CUPE is wrong and the government is right or vice versa. I'm saying that it needs to be settled and then figure out a way forward there because there are people who are suffering.
Okay, when we come back, Tim Houston, of course, the Premier of Nova Scotia, but he's also the province's energy minister. But should that continue when we return? This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Here with Lisa Blackburn, Jordi Morgan, Focus Nova Scotia. Almost a May long weekend, by the way. I was looking at the Halifax weather forecast for today. Looks nice for the long weekend. 20 degrees or so. Good for you.
Ooh.
Good for you. On the north side of Cape Breton, they call Victoria Day Hiking Day. I don't know if they do that in Halifax. In Cape Breton, people call it Hiking Day. It's Hiking Day, really? Victoria Day.
No.
But,
never heard of that.
I think it's kind of a hyper-local thing, but there you go.
I'm used to the May
Premier,
2-4, but never hiking weekend.
May 2-4. Yeah, Hiking Day just on Monday. Yeah. Should Premier Tim Houston also serve as the province's energy minister? What do you think, Lisa?
Well, listen, I don't think this is about whether Tim Houston cares about energy. There is no doubt that he sees it as very important to Nova Scotians. But I think the question is whether one person realistically can do both jobs well at this moment. Because, energy minister that's a big ask. The energy file, I think, is too big at this point to be something that's off the side of his desk. I mean, we're dealing with rising power rates, frustration over Nova Scotia Power. There's grid modernization, the offshore wind opportunities, municipalities electrifying their transportation, and of course, the affordability pressures that we're all feeling. So this isn't a quiet department. Arguably, this might be one of the most consequential files in government. So when Houston says, I took it on because it's important, my response is, okay, if it's that important, should it be really part-time?
What do you think, Jordi?
Well, I'll take the other side of it is putting somebody else in the file who's going to do what the Premier says anyway, going to be, making much of a difference. There's Marco McLeod as the ministerial assistant. He's a good MLA. He seems to be a hardworking member. And if there's work that needs to be done separate and aside from what the Premier is doing, I think there's a couple of things. The Premier is doing this to show that he feels that it's a priority for government. He has spent some time in some large energy development areas, including, Texas and other places. He wants to lead the file. Some folks are saying, well, he's about there selling the province anyway, but this is something I think that sends a signal that has not been sent for a long time for Nova Scotia, that we are open for business in terms of resource development and energy development. And having the Premier leading that file is a pretty good signal. If he's down in Texas talking to people in the oil and gas sector, or if he's, the person who is really taking the lead on Wind West and other energy files, then I think, it serves his purposes to do that. And he can find plenty of horsepower within his caucus. They have a pretty big majority. They're not hurting for folks on the Progressive Conservative caucus. They have lots
to choose from there.
They don't affect through it anymore, but they've got a pretty good team. So.
Okay. All right. Look, I really appreciate the time today. Always great to get caught up with the two of you. Thanks again.
Always
Thank
a
you, Rob.
pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. And enjoy your long weekend. Lisa Blackburn, former Halifax City Councillor and NDP candidate. And Jordi Morgan, Director of Strategic Growth and Partnerships at Enterprise Canada, government relations firm. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback is coming up next. Lots we can kick around today. Some stories in the news cycle with your help right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today we want your take on some stories that are in the news cycle. There's the referendum in Alberta. That's all up in the air now. Separation referendum. There's the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, seemingly eager to slap for sale signs on everything. And there's what's happening with condos in Toronto. Thousands of them being sold to a very wealthy family from Montreal, all in one fell swoop. I want your take on that. Our phone lines are open right now. The number to call, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. So a judge in Alberta has basically slammed the brakes on the drive for a referendum on separation that was seemingly on pace to happen this fall. She tossed the whole thing yesterday, saying those involved failed to consult with First Nations. 4 First Nations were challenging the separatist referendum in court, trying to make the case that there was a duty to consult. And now a judge has agreed, and the First Nations have won 3 out of the 4. And the separatists have lost. The government has lost. The government of Premier Danielle Smith. The separatists are vowing to appeal, and the government's vowing to appeal. How do you view this, listeners? Do you view this as a positive development? Do you view this as a negative development? Is this good news? Is this bad news? The Premier says her government's going to appeal the decision. She was asked if there would be a referendum on Alberta separation this fall. She couldn't say that would be the case. As a federalist, I would normally view this sort of news in a positive light, a defeat for the separatists, but I also think, well, it's not the end of the story, is it? It's just an extension of the uncertainty, and I think the whole country would be better off if the vote was held this fall and just get it over with. That's my own opinion, but what do you think of this development? How do you see it? Is this good news? Is this bad news? Just what do you think of it? 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. That is one story alive and well in the news cycle today. Another is, and this is what I'm calling it, privatizing Canada. Privatizing Canada. Prime Minister Carney keeps saying he wants to build Canada strong. That's his favorite line, right? Build Canada strong. Maybe he should come up with a new line. Privatize Canada fast. There are no shortage of subtle hints being dropped. The big stuff owned by the government, owned by you and me, could soon be for sale to private investors. Last week, it was airports in the news. Maybe we'll sell the airports to the private sector. Some like the idea, some don't like the idea. The government's asked about the idea. The government does not deny the idea. Now, it's ports, like the Port of Vancouver, like the Port of Montreal, like the Port of Halifax. The government will hold public consultations. It wants a report about amalgamating some ports and selling others. Maybe this is a good idea. Maybe it's a terrible idea. We want to know what kind of idea you think it is. 1-833-668-2577. I mean, Canada's been through privatization efforts before by governments. Prime Minister Mulroney sold off 9 Crown corporations. I was around in those days. Crown corporations like Air Canada, Canadair, Canadian Arsenals, Telglobe, de Havilland, Fishery Products International, El Dorado Nuclear. It started the privatization of CN Rail and Petro-Canada. That was a job that was finished off by the Liberal government that came after it, led by Prime Minister Chrétien. Stephen Harper sold off the CANDU reactor division to SNC-Lavalin. Harper started the privatization of the Ridley terminals in Prince Rupert. Justin Trudeau's government finished that job. The Canadian Wheat Board's single desk monopoly was ended under Mr. Harper. All to say it's been done before, but never the airports. Kim Campbell tried to do that. The Chrétien government shelved that. And never the country's major ports, the container ports. But now it seems Mark Carney's government is open to the idea. Privately run airports, privately run container ports. None of this was mentioned during last year's election campaign. None of this came up. That Mark Carney would consider doing any of this, but he is doing it, exploring the idea. And we want to know what you think of it at 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. This is an interesting story. It's a Toronto story. Buying condos in bulk. One of our callers raised this sort of thing last week, the financialization of housing. As I'm sure some of you are aware, Toronto is saturated with condos that nobody wants to buy. There are entire buildings sitting empty and no new condos are being built. Now you have one wealthy family out of Montreal wants to spend $30 million buying hundreds of condos in downtown Toronto, and it says it's going to spend $500 million, $500 million, buying thousands and thousands and thousands of condos across Toronto. It's called the Gesta Group, owned by an extremely wealthy family from Montreal. And this company says the plan is to turn these empty condos into rentals. Rents from $1,600 a month for smaller units. It's Toronto, right? Up to more than $3,000 a month for larger units. They'll be subject to rent control, and they're going to buy thousands and thousands and thousands of condos. But is it a good idea that one family could control thousands and thousands and thousands of condos as rental housing? It's more rental housing, need more rental housing, but some people make the case that this is the financialization of housing, that it's housing as an investment vehicle and not housing as a place to live. But the question is, should wealthy families or big wealthy corporations be allowed to buy up thousands and thousands and thousands of housing units in this country? Yes or no? Where do you come down on that? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. And let's kick around some of these stories that are in the news cycle this week. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about some stories in the news cycle today with your help. An Alberta judge has thrown the possibility of a fall referendum in Alberta on Alberta separation into serious doubt now, ruling First Nations were not consulted. Do you see that as good news or bad news? Is that good news or bad news for you, that the Alberta separation referendum seems to be, at the very least, on hold for now? The Mark Carney government is considering privatizing airports, but now we're learning also container ports. Would you support privatizing airports or container ports? Airports like Pearson, container ports like the Port of Vancouver, the Port of Halifax, for sale to the highest bidder. What do you think about that? And a wealthy family from Montreal plans to spend as much as $500 million buying thousands of empty condos in Toronto, turning them into rentals. Do you think wealthy individuals or big companies should be allowed to buy up thousands and thousands and thousands of vacant housing units? Some people will be opposed to that. What about you? 1-833-668-2577. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines available there, folks. Wait won't be long. Judy is in Calgary today. Thanks for calling, Judy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, Judy. Yeah, you're welcome, Judy.
Rob, I just want to comment on the referendum, the First Nations getting the referendum canceled. I, regardless of whether the separatist question is a good question or a bad question, it concerns me that a small number of unelected people are in a position to have more power over the direction of a democracy or of an area than the larger population. Like, have these native chiefs, have they taken it to their people? Are they representing all of the members of their bands when they make this decision? Have they been elected by their bands? How many people do they represent, all inclusive? Like, it's just, I appreciate that, we have unique situation with the Indigenous population in the country and there are rights there. But, at some point we have to just figure out how we find a balance between, I just don't think they should be able to stop this just saying, hey, we don't want it, we don't think it's legal, and our rights supersede anybody else's rights. It's just, it feels
okay.
If the question was
not. I don't think that's
would,
really what's happened. I'm not sure that's what happened. But there is a duty to consult if their rights are going to be impacted. And the judge has said, well, if you're voting on separating Alberta from Canada, that would affect the treaty rights of these First Nations very clearly. It would affect their treaty rights. The judge is saying
it would affect everybody's rights.
Well, okay, yes, but there's a but under the law, what she's saying, and under the precedent is what the judge is saying. There's a duty to consult that was not done here, and it should have been done.
Well, I'm not sure that they have. I hear what you're saying, but if that's the case, we have issues in this country because it feels like it's a very small number of unelected people that are saying, wait a minute, you can't do this. I don't think there's any other, it's just nobody else has that kind of clout. And even if the referendum went ahead and even if it was successful, at that point, there would be a duty to consult. Because at that point, it would be saying, hey, wait a minute, now if everybody voted in favor of this impacts the original treaty arrangements, and that needs to be dealt with.
Okay.
So I think it has a place, but I just don't think for them to say... You think
it's kind of putting the cart before the horse? Like, why not wait until the outcome of the referendum and then everyone gets to consult on what happens next, including the First Nations? I see your point.
Anyway,
thank you, Judy. Thank you for your call. Every single line is available there right now, folks. Quiet one so far on Talkback. Love to hear from you today. 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. That's 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Kick today, like the referendum on separation in Alberta, all up in the air. The Prime Minister Mark Carney potentially privatizing airports, maybe even container ports, selling them off to private investors. I'm really interested in this story in Toronto, where you have one wealthy family that could be on the cusp of acquiring $500 million worth of condos. I get that they're empty condos, but there are people who have expressed concern about that in the past. They call it the financialization of housing, and they're not comfortable with either big wealthy families, billionaire families, or deep-pocketed corporations buying up housing units by the hundreds, if not thousands. And that's what's happening in Canada's biggest city. Eve is in Halifax. Hello, Eve.
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Not too bad.
That's good.
I disagree with this privatization.
You do? Okay.
It's like the Killam outfit that has come to Nova Scotia and bought up all the reasonable and lower rental properties. And now the rent is sky high here. And the wages don't match, and especially minimum wage. You have to have a really good job to live in Nova Scotia with any comfort anymore.
Oh, yes.
It's just ruined everything here.
So is this a company that's been buying...
Like $2,300.
So if I could, Eve, these used to be modestly priced rentals? And a big company is come in? They're all gone. Okay. And have people been...
just like Killam.
Right. And have people been... these in Toronto, these are brand new condos, so I don't think there would be a need for rent-evicting people. But is that what's happened in Nova Scotia? You've seen rent-evictions, for example? We got to fix up the place. And people are, told they have to...
That's happened all across the province.
It has, yeah. And then the rent is raised, as you say, to more than $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just terrible. And as for...
Right. So when you hear that, say, one wealthy family from Montreal wants to buy thousands and thousands of vacant units, you're concerned, right?
Well, it's no different from the Killam family coming here and buying up everything.
I'm not... Understood. I'm not quite familiar with the Killam family, but thank you very much, Eve, for your call. First-time caller there in Halifax. Back to Calgary. Chris is in Calgary. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, Chris. Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Listen, I want to mainly comment on the referendum in Alberta, but very quickly on the other two topics. I don't have a problem with wealthy people buying whatever the heck they want to buy. If they can spend their money however they want, the question becomes, well, if we're going to start limiting how many houses, what number is that? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Is it 5,000? So it's like none of our business what rich people do with their money. They can do with it as they wish.
Okay.
Now, in terms of privatizing the ports and whatnot, I'm all for government getting out of as much things as possible. I'm a small government person, and I don't have a problem with privatizing things that, they were saying they were going to privatize the RCMP or the military or something like that. Okay, now I have an objection, but in terms of ports or airports or that kind of thing, no problem. Okay.
So, for example, in Calgary, where you have the, instead of having a Calgary Airport Authority, like a not-for-profit corporation, if it was instead run by some big pension plan or something like that, you'd be okay with that?
Not a problem, as long as it's not
a problem.
Government.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the
referendum. So very quickly on the referendum.
Yeah, very quickly. I don't see where, like the judge said that, it's affecting their treaty rights. It doesn't affect their treaty rights until you have a referendum and there's a positive vote. Then it's going to affect their treaty rights. So I can understand where the judge is coming from, but I think he's jumping the gun.
Jumping the gun. Yeah, that's what the first caller said. Okay, yeah, putting the cart before the horse, if you will. Thank you for your call. Hope to hear from more of you today on Talkback on 1-833-668-2577.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been talking about the uncertain outlook for the referendum in Alberta now because of that judge's ruling yesterday. Prime Minister Carney open to privatizing airports and now container ports as well. And a bulk buy, that's in the headline in the Toronto Star, bulk buy of condos in Toronto. $30 million worth to start, maybe $500 million worth this year in Canada's largest city as one wealthy family in Montreal buys up thousands and thousands of housing units. Just gathering your thoughts on that and how that sits with you. Does that sit okay with you? Where are we going next? Blair is up next, a first-time caller. Hello, Blair.
Hello, how are you doing today?
Yeah, very good, Blair. Thank you. Your opinion, please.
Excellent. Yeah, so the first thing about the separatist thing, I appreciate where you said, just pull the Band-Aid off and get it over with, because I do believe that it is destroying a lot of investor confidence. And the other kind of 2 points about that, too, are, it's basically about the oil. And, the vast majority of the revenue goes to the states already. So, if we did become part of the United States, they would just keep getting their money. And I think the other big thing to think about with the First Nations is that First Nations are not treated well in the United States. And so I can see why they would not want to be a part of that.
Yeah, but this is about an independent Alberta. It's not necessarily about Alberta joining the United States. Perhaps it has something to do with Alberta having closer ties with the United States.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I don't understand how that would work exactly. It just doesn't make any sense.
That's the case they're making. They don't know how it would work either. They're saying, "Hey, we have treaties with the Crown, not with an independent Alberta, but with the Crown."
Yeah,
Canada. What does that mean for us?
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when you heard that news, okay, that it's all up in the air now, it's all on hold. Okay, this has been tossed now. It's been basically deemed an illegitimate exercise by a court. Is that good news for you? Do you consider that to be good news?
You know what? I did up until you said pull the Band-Aid off and get it all over with. So now I'm a little fogged out about the whole issue now.
You are. Yeah, I can appreciate that. Maybe some people are tired of hearing it, but gosh, this is not just an Alberta issue. I mean, this affects every Canadian. If Alberta leaves Canada, this affects every Canadian if Alberta leaves Canada.
Oh, yeah.
No question about it.
It would be terrible to have just kind of like this little tiny country in the middle of another country and all that things that would have to go on. Kind of like a really ugly Brexit or something. I don't know.
Yep. Okay, Blair, thank you. Good to hear from you today. Why don't we go back to Nova Scotia? Let's mix it up here. Let's go to Stewiacke. First-time caller in Stewiacke, Nova Scotia. Roger.
Hello.
Hello, Roger. Yeah, good to hear from you, Roger.
How's everybody? Good. How's everybody in the studio? Good, I'm sure.
Yeah, everybody's good here, Roger. Yeah. What's your opinion, Roger?
Just talking about the privatization stuff, and I've been a resident of Nova Scotia for 20-some years now. I used to live in New Brunswick. But the privatization it is a monopoly. I mean, there's no doubt about it. These politicians are not making any money being a politician. They're not going to get rich being a politician, but they are going to get rich by selling off stuff and knowing who the buyers are going to be way ahead of anybody else. So these politicians are buying stocks in the companies that they know who's going to be buying this infrastructure, and that's how these politicians are getting rich. I can give you an example of one. When Stephen McNeil privatized the highway in Pictou County and then in Ganesh County. It was a big thing on TV. There was, I think, a fire marshal or a fire chief that was crying at the meeting on TV, and it was going to be a great big thing. It was good that they built that highway, but to privatize it, nobody knew who was going to get that contract. I know who got that contract. Nova Construction and Dexter Construction combined together, and they're called DNA, and that's who got the contract, which was awarded at $750 million, and it ballooned over $1 billion, way over $1 billion, because of overcost. And they knew ahead of time who was going to get that contract, and they just bought stocks in that company way before anybody else could, and lo and behold, who got rich? Well,
Yeah,
I can tell you, I worked in the industry, and I know all about it. And this is how politicians are getting rich. They're not getting rich being a politician. They're getting rich by selling off, privatizing big assets, and buying into the assets way ahead of anybody else. And they're putting the money in way before anybody else, and they're buying stocks, and that's how they're getting rich. And
all right, sir. So you're obviously, okay. So you would be against it. You would be against it. Again, I have no evidence that former Premier of Nova Scotia, Stephen McNeil, bought any stocks, when he bought stocks, what company he bought stocks. I have no evidence of that. You say you do. I guess I'd have to take your word for it. I have my doubts, but I have no evidence of that, and I wouldn't make those claims. But we'll have to stop here. More of your calls just ahead. 1-833-668-2577. Kicking around some stories in the news today on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Some lines available there for you folks if you want to join the conversation on Talkback today. Talking about the referendum in Alberta. Seems to be on hold for now, the separation referendum. Prime Minister Carney exploring the potential privatization of airports, container ports, and the like, and bulk buying of condos in Toronto for now. Who knows? Maybe more. We'll see what happens. But it's a very wealthy family in Toronto. It plans to spend $500 million buying up thousands and thousands and thousands of housing units. 1-833-668-2577. Happy to say on that or any other story. Dave in Halifax. Hello, Dave.
Yes, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome, Dave. Go ahead.
Yes, just this privatization of airports and ports, Mark Carney, that is, entertaining the idea. Imagine if he used that as his campaign slogan or his idea during the election. How far would he have gotten with that versus the elbows up, for example? Or can you imagine if Poilievre brought that up? I mean, this is just unheard of. I mean, I know liberals are staunch liberals, but I could imagine, and they're dug in pretty good as far as being liberal. Can you imagine what, and quite frankly, I don't mind the idea of entertaining the idea of privatization. I think if there's a way of saving money, because our deficit in this country is massive and climbing, would that be a way out of perhaps saving taxpayers some money? I know you've heard.
Potentially. For example, there was an estimate in the media a couple of weeks ago that we have 23 airports that are under airport authorities in Canada. They might be worth $100 billion. That if you sold them off to private investors, you might be able to raise $100 billion. Government can do a lot of stuff with $100 billion.
Maybe put it in some healthcare where our healthcare is absolutely failing at the moment. So that's the possibility as well. I don't. Absolutely.
Pick whatever your priority has to be, right? Yeah.
Right. And I guess my point being is if he's dug in for 4 years, right? He's not going anywhere soon. So he can entertain this idea and throw this out. And you're still going to get the liberal diehards that are going to support everything that man does at the moment. And his polling is in a situation where it's good right now, of course, So I would say, yes. I mean, like I said, if Pierre Poilievre had even brought that up, or Conservatives, I mean, you'd have people out on the unions would be out picketing.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You can imagine. Well, I don't know if they'd be out picketing, but people would be saying, Pierre Poilievre wants to privatize Canada, or wants to sell off Canada to the highest bidder. I told my friend Michael Taube this today. Liberals would be losing their minds if this was a Conservative government that was contemplating doing this, privatizing airports, potentially selling off container ports. Even you hear it today. It's even hard to get a call on this today. It's it's very strange.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they'd probably be blaming Trump for it all at the same token as well, right? It's his fault or whatever. So, in my opinion, right, everything seems to be with the liberal staunch people, and many of the liberal folks are baby boomers. They're not the young people. I don't think a lot of them don't unfortunately get out and vote. But I think the younger people are more into the conservative avenue at as far as I know by talking to people. It's the older guard liberal people. And but Carney can get away with this. And like I said, I don't myself, being a conservative, if we could save the taxpayers' money and put it elsewhere, maybe that's not a bad idea. And I don't believe.
But to your point, where was any of this during the election? I understand the election campaign was kind of a different time. Elbows up was all over the place. Affordability was also a big issue. But I do wonder what the political fortunes of the Liberal Party would have been like if they had floated this one. Let's sell off the airports to private interests, and while we're at it, let's sell off the container ports as well. I don't know if that would have gone down very well with Canadian voters at the time, but they're open to doing it now. This is Talkback.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. We have been discussing, with your help today, some stories that are in the news cycle. Every single phone line is available right now. We welcome your calls at 1-833-668-2577. So, for example, an Alberta judge has thrown the possibility of a fall referendum on Alberta separation into doubt, ruling that First Nations were not consulted. Thus, the whole thing appears to be dead for now. But what I want to know, and what we're asking is, when you hear news like that, is that good news for you? Is that bad news for you? Just what do you think? Okay, it's all up in the air. It's all on hold. It is unlikely, I would say, there'll be an election on a referendum on separation this fall in Alberta. Is that good news for you? Or is that bad news for you? Do you consider that a good news day or a bad news day? On the Prime Minister Mark Carney and his government considering privatizing airports, and now in the news, container ports. What do you think of this idea? I mean, maybe there's some merit to it. Do you support privatizing airports, container ports? Port of Vancouver? Port of Montreal? The government's pouring billions of dollars into the Port of Montreal right now. Port of Halifax? What do you think of that idea? Selling it off to big institutional investors. BlackRock, Canada Pension Plan, Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, the OMERS Pension Plan, whatever the case might be. And you have a wealthy family from Montreal plans to spend $500 million in a year buying thousands of empty condos in Toronto, turning them into rentals. You can always use more rental housing. But the question will be asked, as it always is when stories like that hit the news, whether that should even be allowed, whether wealthy individuals or big companies should be allowed to buy thousands and thousands and thousands of housing units. Some people call that the financialization of housing, turning housing into a financial asset, an investment that pays off for investors, not necessarily renters. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. For example, the report in one of the papers today says when big financial firms go on the move and start buying in bulk housing units, they don't have a very good record when it comes to things like rent evictions, for example. Now, these would be brand new condos in Toronto. Not much need for renovations. They've just been built. They're sitting there empty. But I would like your thoughts on it. At 1-833-668-2577. Now, with the Alberta referendum court decision, there are people online suggesting that the Premier of Alberta should use the notwithstanding clause of the Charter, Section 33 of the Charter, to override this judge's ruling in this case. That is not in the cards this time. The notwithstanding clause is part of the Charter. This is not really a charter case having to do with charter rights. Doesn't have to do with fundamental freedoms in the charter or legal rights in the charter. It's not a charter case. This was about treaty rights and whether a vote to leave Canada would have an impact on the treaty rights of the First Nations that took this matter to court. And the judge said it would, and that there's a duty to consult. So that's pretty much the end of it right now, pending an appeal, which the Smith government vows to do. But because it's not about, say, the fundamental freedoms that are in the Charter or your legal rights that are in the Charter, it's not like the Premier can say, I'm invoking the notwithstanding clause. Charter doesn't work that way. The clearest path for the Premier and for Stay Free Alberta would be an appeal. Now, again, one of the questions is the timing. And Premier Smith couldn't say yesterday when she was asked if there would be a vote this fall on separation. Think of it. The Alberta government would have to come up with its argument. It says there that it believes that there are errors in law. It would have to make that case. It would have to get it heard at the appeal court in a hearing, wait for a ruling. Maybe it goes their way. Maybe it doesn't go their way. If it doesn't go their way, maybe they appeal again to the Supreme Court and, wait again. If the government wins on the appeal, the First Nations could appeal to the Supreme Court. None of that sets up well for an October timeline for a vote on separation. I just don't know how her government plans to get around a court ruling like this. It's not like her government could just ignore a ruling from the Court of King's Bench of Alberta, no matter how terrible she might think the ruling is. 1-833-668-2577. Linda's in southern Alberta. Hello, Linda.
Hello.
Hi, Linda. Yeah, good to hear from you, Linda.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as what the First Nations have done, like others have said, I think they put the cart before the horse. They should have just let it go and it goes one way or the other, and then the decisions could have been brought forward then. And as far as Carney's selling off, I think if he keeps up, we'll just be a country in name only. I don't believe that all of the selling off helps anything. I know we've sold off provincially, and our fees have always just continually gone up. Service isn't there, but the fees are going up. And as far as people buying block condos and that, well, I've seen that happen in the city close to me, and they bought older buildings. So, evicted people saying we're renovating, and then they said, okay, now you can move back in, but the price is this.
Yeah.
And the price keeps going up. So when anything gets privatized, the cost goes up because those guys are looking at, well, we want to make our profit. Our shareholders want their dividends, and that's where we're going to sit.
Okay, fair enough. Linda, you've got hour number 2 underway for us here on Talkback. 1-833-668-2577. Have your say. Just like Linda did. Very quickly touched on all 3 of those there. 3-4 lines available there for you. Love to hear from you on Talkback on this Thursday here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Referendum news in Alberta. Privatization news in Ottawa. Bulk buying of condos in Toronto. We're talking about it all today on Talkback with your help. Wade is in Sylvan Lake, and he's up next. Hello, Wade.
Hey, Rob. Hey.
Well, you were very happy last week, Wade. How are you feeling this week?
I'm ecstatic. I think
really?
it's great. Well, I can tell you why. is because, first of all, they keep saying this judge was an Alberta judge. Well, she's not. She's from New Brunswick, and she was appointed by the federal government. That's the way it works, right? The same as the last judge, Justice Feasby, who turned down our last question right the day after Bill 14 was introduced, which changed some of the rules. He made a ruling, that question's out. We made a new question, we put it forth. And now this next federally appointed judge, imagine everybody's shock and surprise, appointed by the Liberal government, is doing what she did, made the ruling that she did. However, there was no duty to consult from a citizen's initiative. It was a citizen that put forth the question, not the provincial government. So the provincial government didn't have a duty to consult until after the referendum question would have been answered. Then there would have been a duty to consult. Had the provincial government brought the question forward to put on a referendum, they would have had a duty to consult. But this was a petition put forth by a citizen. And if what she says, the ruling she made is true, that means that Thomas Lukasik's petition shouldn't have gone forward because he didn't consult any First Nations. Paul Brandt has a petition out right now to stop coal mining in a certain part of Alberta. Well, his petition shouldn't go through either because he didn't consult. There's no duty to consult on a citizen's initiative.
Well, all of this would make, a compelling argument, I suppose, for an appeal. This was the argument that. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. If you listen to Keith Wilson, who is at King's Counsel and a very, very astute lawyer who's been on our side for quite some time, working with Bruce Pardy and Jeff Rath, the ruling is it's a nothing burger. It's absolute nothing burger. And now the ball is in Danielle Smith's court. She can call for a referendum on separation anytime she wants. And the ball's in her court. If she doesn't call for a referendum, there is going to be at least 300,000 very choked UCP members. And that's not going to bode well for her in the end.
Okay. All right. Again, Justice Leonard heard this argument that, there would be off-ramps to the referendum process to ensure treaties were respected and that the duty to consult would happen after the referendum. And she disagreed. She said, quote, as a matter of logic and common sense, there can be no doubt that Alberta's secession from Canada will have an impact on Treaties 7 and 8. A requirement to implement secession without prior involvement of First Nations has the potential to adversely affect treaty rights. So you're saying it's a nothing burger?
Well, yes, simply because the option is out there for the First Nations to stay with the federal government. They can stay. They can take their little piece of land, their reserve land that they're on. That can stay with the federal government. They can continue to be getting nothing from the federal government, all they want, for as many years as they want. The end result is they would have a vote just like us. And right now, I believe it's 46% of Indigenous people would vote to leave Canada.
Okay. All right, Wade. We'll see what happens with it. Thank you for your perspective on it. He thinks it's a big nothing burger, and this is what we are hearing. I've been following it very closely. Danielle Smith, if this does not get on the ballot this fall for a referendum, Danielle Smith could be facing a whole heap of trouble from grassroots members of the UCP, and I think that's what Wade is talking about there. Why don't we stop here? Tony, just hang on the line. We'll get to you next. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback today. Thank you, Wade, for your call. Part of the independence movement, regular caller to Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
All right, let's get to Tony. He's up next in Calgary. Hello, Tony. Hi, Tony.
Yeah. Hey, how are you?
Yeah, good, Tony. How are you?
Good, thanks. So just a couple points that I'd touch on is privatizing anything that's government managed or owned. I think that's a great idea. I'm all for smaller government. I know the Port of Vancouver is like literally one of the worst performing ports in the world. And that's a stat that I've heard several times. The other thing,
I can tell you just how bad it is. So they do global rankings every year of the most efficiently run ports in the world, 403 of them, and the Port of Vancouver was ranked 398th, sir.
Yeah, and where's Montreal? I
don't know where Montreal is, but I looked up Vancouver because I remember that was in the news not that long ago.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I can imagine Montreal is not that far behind it. But as far as privatizing anything government's been involved in, I'm all for that. The other issue is one of your previous callers commented about how telling it is that you don't hear anything in the news about all this privatization talk from the Liberal government, where I totally agree that if it was a conservative mandate, it would just be all over the news. But that's that's the world we live in Canada. The other thing is, like, Carney just can't help himself. Now he's going to double the electrical infrastructure. I mean, we haven't even got a pipeline contract signed yet. So it's almost comical, the amount of stuff that he's putting forward for the people just to lap it up. Everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, his timeline for that was in the next 20 years, we will double our electricity generation.
Yeah, I can just imagine. Well, hopefully he's not here for another 20 years, but Brookfield will be. So I can imagine they'll be deep in that.
All right. Tony, thank you for your call to Innisfail, Alberta. Ben is on the line. First-time caller. Hello, Ben.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call, Rob.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rob, on privatization, the way I look at it, any government corporation that does not make a profit and needs taxpayers' dollars to be solvent, sell it.
Okay.
Simple. That's my opinion on that. I am quite private, go private, more efficient, and things get done.
So for example, in Calgary, this is the example I use right now. You have a Calgary Airport Authority, which is a not-for-profit corporation, and you have a management team and a board of directors, running the airport on behalf of and at arm's length to the federal government, right? What if the Calgary Airport was instead sold to, I don't know, some investment authority in Dubai or something? What would you think of that?
Well, they're still going to be under Canadian regulations. They still have
aviation regulations. Security would all still be handled by the federal government. The air traffic control would still be run by NAVCAN. But, the forward-facing passenger stuff, waiting in the terminal, shopping in the terminal, eating in the terminal, all of that would be privately run.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be okay with that?
Sure. I mean,
okay.
I would be. I'm sick and tired of these corporations needing taxpayers' money to stay solvent. Canada Post, CBC, all of them. Get rid of them. Sell them. Let them go private. I'm sick and tired of paying for all this stuff.
Okay. I hear you, Tony. Thank you for your call in Calgary today, or Ben in Innisfail. Yep, Ben in Innisfail, Alberta. First-time caller. The latest breaking news coming up next, and then more of your phone calls. Prime Minister Carney was asked about this bid, privatizing airports, potentially privatizing container ports. He was also asked about the current situation with the referendum in Alberta as well. He's going to be in Alberta tomorrow with Premier Smith on that deal about the industrial carbon tax and potentially a pipeline to the West Coast. That'll be a big news story that we can talk about tomorrow. But that's for tomorrow. But we'll let you hear what he said about the referendum today. Coming up right after the latest breaking news. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yep. Talkback. Home stretch now of Talkback here on Thursday. I'm Rob Snow. We've been kicking around some stories in the news cycle, like the uncertainty around the future of the Alberta separation referendum, gathering your thoughts on that. Prime Minister Carney's privatization push, can you call it that? And bulk buying of vacant, empty condos in Toronto by the thousands by wealthy investors. That's an interesting one. I'm following that one with great interest. Who do we have up next here? Emerson? Emerson. Okay. Hello, Emerson.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call, Rob. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
You're welcome. Great to hear
Thank
from
you.
you.
I just want to comment on this referendum in Alberta. You know, Rob, I was 11 years old. I struggled for many years. I'm 65 now, hearing, Quebec's going to separate. Let's stop them. Let's try this. Let's do this. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars on trying to prevent them. And here they are today. They're still part of Canada. We have our own issues in Alberta where people are struggling. They're financially, they're homeless. There's no money for anything else. But we sure have a lot of money to fight court battles in court, Indigenous people going to court and this and that and the other. I have this to say. At the end of the day, nobody is going anywhere, and that includes the premier. She's going to be our premier after the next election. All the noise that the NDP are making and trying to get people all fired up, she's this, she's that. She is extremely bright. She knows what she's doing. She's taking advantage of all the opportunities of even siding with the Indigenous people. And absolutely they're entitled to their right. And absolutely I'll fight for all of Albertans and blah, blah, blah. Nobody is going anywhere. But what I'm getting at is I'm just sick and tired of hearing about it and all the money that's being wasted when we can be helping people who are helpless. They don't have the money. I'll tell you something. Nobody wants to see anybody leave Canada. It's all talk, and it's all, like Jason Kenney says, everybody is trying to make a name for themselves, grandstanding. And it's too bad that it's at our expense. And I just hope people wake up and realize you can yell and scream all you want. Nobody is going anywhere. We did it for I don't know how many years with Quebec. And they're going to try it again if there's a new party there after their next election. They'll try it. Because it comes down to one thing. It's all about the money. That's what this is about. How much money can I get from the government to say we'll back down from this? And that's what these groups are waiting for. So, Rob, I hope you can find a nice soft spot and just say, listen, people, wake up. Emerson's right. Nobody's going anywhere, and that includes Danielle Smith. Have a nice long weekend.
Emerson.
You're the best.
Thank you.
Follow your program. God bless you.
Yeah, God bless you, Emerson. Thank you. Let's listen to a couple of clips from Premier Smith. This is from her event yesterday when she said she's going to meet with her cabinet. She's going to decide what to do next. I guess they were all in the legislature when news of this broke. And she vowed an appeal. Politics too, please.
It is a single judge who's made a decision. And we have now 700,000 Albertans, whether they're on the Remain side or the Leave side, who've said that they want to have this public debate. So our citizen initiative petition was always meant to be very permissive. And we kept on having to modify it to ensure that that permissive quality was in there. We want to hear from Albertans. That's what we think democracy is. And we'll be meeting with our caucus and cabinet to further review the decision and decide next steps. But as I say, since we believe that this one is incorrect in law and anti-democratic, we will be appealing it.
And then she was asked if she thought it could still be up for a vote this fall. She would not confirm that it would be.
We make our decisions in government through a process that includes committees, through cabinet, as well as through caucus. And so my caucus has just learned of this decision. It just came down while we were in the legislature and haven't had a time to get together and discuss what our next steps will be. The committee has been meeting to look at the Forever Canada petition and to offer some suggestions about what should be done with that one as well. But we haven't made a decision yet. But I can tell you on this case in particular, this judgment, we think that there has been an error in law, which is why we're going to be appealing it. And we think it's anti-democratic. We want to make sure that that citizens who participate in good faith in this process have an expectation that the Elections Alberta is going to validate their signatures. That's been stopped in this case, and that's part of the reason why we're going to appeal. But we'll have more to say once I have had a chance to talk with Cabinet and caucus.
So Prime Minister Carney is going to be in Alberta tomorrow for the announcement with Premier Smith on industrial carbon taxes, possible pipeline projects to the West Coast. He was asked about this development today and his thoughts on the separation referendum in Alberta. This is what the Prime Minister said today.
My role in the role of the federal government is, and we're pursuing this, is to practice cooperative federalism, to work with the provinces, work with the territories, work with Indigenous Canadians, and get things done on behalf of all Canadians. That's what we're doing with the province of Alberta. As someone who was raised in Alberta, proud Albertan, I view that very much the best place for Alberta is in Canada, and certainly a Canada that works, which is what we're pursuing. And I think the evidence, well, others will judge, but we're making that progress on behalf of Albertans. But by making Alberta stronger, we're making all of Canada stronger. Look, in terms of any referendum, we're a democracy. We have certain standards and an ability for provinces to hold referenda on a variety of subjects, and if following the rules, they hold referendums. Obviously, we support that. That means respecting the rights of Indigenous peoples, respecting the rights of people to privacy. It means if it's a referendum on separation in any province, it has to be consistent with the Clarity Act, and our role is to make sure those it's a role of other authorities in many cases to ensure that those rights are respected. With respect to the Clarity Act, as I'm sure you know, ultimately Parliament has a role in making the judgment about the question. But I'll go back and then hand back to you, Abigail. I'll go back to where I started. The core thing is working with the provinces, whether it's Alberta, Nova Scotia, whichever province, whatever territory, to make the country work, and that's what this government is focused on.
Cooperative federalism, he says. That's his focus. You hear him again bringing up the Clarity Act brought in by the Chrétien Liberals after the near-death experience during the 95 referendum in Quebec. But again, how do you view this development? I mean, it really has to be considered a serious blow, you would have to think, to the chances of an Alberta referendum this fall. Danielle Smith, I suppose, could add it to the roster of referenda that she wants to have in October anyway. But if she just goes ahead and does that, that's kind of something a separatist premier in Quebec would do. And she says she's not a separatist, and that she wants Alberta to stay in Canada. But as of now, it seems as though it's basically been stopped in its tracks. 1-833-668-2577. Have your say. Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Staying in Alberta, Sam in Hannah is up next on Talkback. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Nice. Yeah, very good, Sam.
Awesome.
Yeah, what's your opinion on everything that's going on? Well, I love your call already.
I admire your work. Please keep up the good work. I'm not going to take much of your time, sir. I'm a man of few words, and I have the solution for all these problems that Albertans are facing, not to mention all Canada and the world. You know, I'm going to give you the solution first, sir. You know, the light of unity is so powerful that it can unite everyone. on every platform. What Albertans need to do is, first of all, they shouldn't let all these leaders that occupy the seats of authority to dictate what is their question in mind. They should ask their leaders what they want to be done for Albertans, also for all Canada. The solution is unity, my friend. Without unity, there would be chaos, disaster, disunity, and waste of time, money, resources for everybody. What they are doing every time here, it just reminds me of what happened in Quebec 35 years ago. I was in China at that time. I was laughing, and my students were asking, what's happening in Canada? I said, this is just a political, orchestrated game. They are keeping people busy so they cannot focus on the real issues. The real issue is, my friend, the unity. Without unity, there is no prosperity, there is no peace, there is no development. That's it. They should remove everything that has a notion, as a smell of this unity among Albertans and Canadians, for that sake. I'm done. Do you have any questions?
All right. Very well, Sam. I'm going to let you go because I have some other calls to get to. Let's go to Ryan. Is in Calgary. Hello, Ryan.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, Ryan. Thank you. Your opinion, please.
So my opinion, I have a couple of points. The first is about the massive data breach with the Alberta electors list.
Yes.
And the goofs that have stolen it, basically, and are potentially using the names on this referendum. The other part, I guess, is that I think basically the separatist movement they're just basically traitors at this point. And there's one easy solution for them. If they don't like Canada, move. Leave Canada. It's pretty simple.
Okay. Well, they don't want to move from Alberta, though. That's they don't want to move from Alberta,
but that's part
though.
of Canada, though. They don't want to be part of Canada anymore, so they shouldn't.
They don't want to be part of Canada. Sure. Okay.
So I mean, the question should be amended to add that if they lose in the referendum, they should be forced to move. If you don't want to be in Canada, get out.
Okay.
Simple as that.
All right.
Yeah, it's very
Thank you, Ryan.
frustrating listening to all of this. Yeah, thank you.
All right. I understand it. Yeah, I appreciate your frustration, sir. Yes, Rob up next in Calgary. Hello, Rob.
Hello, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, Rob. How are you?
I'm good.
That's good.
My topic is, when the judge kibosh everything, he's separating the Indigenous people from the rest of Alberta. That's called separation. So I think all Albertans have the right to speak. And we do have the right for a referendum. But he's kiboshed that for one group.
All right. Well, the judge in this case, a woman, first of all, sir, and just just a minor detail. The judge also said, if you're going to make a move that impacts treaty rights, and again, her opinion was this would obviously impact treaty rights with the Crown of Canada, a separation referendum in Alberta, then you have a duty to consult. You didn't, so it's an illegitimate exercise that should never have come this far in elections. Alberta can't validate this process.
Right. Well, I'm not about separation at all, but at the same time, don't separate different groups from different groups. Let's all work together.
Okay.
This is something that should have been brought out right away.
Yeah, again, the First Nations felt as though they were just left out of the conversation altogether when it's a pretty significant development for them. And in the end, that was a winning argument for them.
Yeah, they got a lot of rights as well as we do, but you can't separate one by the other.
Okay.
Well,
let me ask you this, Rob, just in because we're going to wrap up here. Do you view this as a positive development? Like, is this good news that this is kind of all up in the air now? Do you view this as positive or what?
I think it is positive because maybe the federal government will work with us, get us our pipelines, get this province even making more money. That's all. That's all everybody really wants, I'm sure.
Well, I think Danielle Smith is spending a huge amount of political capital hoping that she can make that case and that she's getting somewhere with this new Liberal Prime Minister in Ottawa. And there will be news on that, of course, tomorrow when Mr. Carney is in your province. Thank you for your call. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Thanks, everyone, for paying attention to the news cycle. What's going on in the news? Some of these issues are very important. Like the buzz in Ottawa about, well, first it was the Carney Liberals wanting to privatize airports. That's kind of like crickets from everyone. Now it's container ports, even more crickets. We have airport authorities who run the airports right now. Then we have the port authorities running major container ports: Halifax, Vancouver, Montreal, Prince Rupert, St. John, Quebec City. The list goes on. Vancouver, by far the busiest. Almost half the country's container cargo goes through that one port. And it's out there now that the government is thinking some of them could be open to privatization. Airports and container ports. Prime Minister Carney was asked about that today during his news conference in Ottawa. This is what he had to say.
We're very transparent about it. Are we looking in certain cases of, are there assets that the federal government has that we could recycle the investment into supporting building new assets? Airports is an example that is out there. I think the port reference is within a much broader series of things. I don't view it personally as a top priority, but we will look to what we're looking to do with all the tools we have is to catalyze building of this economy. If there are some assets that the federal government has that can help with that process, we'll look at it as part of a comprehensive approach.
Ports are very attractive for big investors like pension funds. One of the biggest investors in ports is our pension plan. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board has a whole portfolio of investments in ports. It's a portfolio. You see what I did there? So we all own, for example, stakes in 21 ports, most of them in the UK. Another big player in ports, Brookfield Asset Management, also a major shareholder in ports in the UK, including one of the UK's largest ports called T-Sport. BlackRock, another big one, DP World. All kinds of big companies, major investment firms, they love buying stakes in ports. Rotterdam, Antwerp, Hong Kong, Singapore, Sydney, Melbourne. They're almost all run by private interests, private investors, dozens and dozens of them around the world. Stakes in them selling for tens of billions of dollars. How much are our container ports worth? I mean, we had one estimate in the news media about 2 weeks ago about the airports saying they could be, just the airports could be worth $100 billion. So what if the ports are worth that much as well? Maybe there is some money to be made there. And maybe some private sector know-how would modernize some of these ports. The Port of Vancouver is notoriously inefficient. In a global ranking of 403 ports around the world, Vancouver ranked 398th. It's one of the reasons why Nutrien decided to spend $1 billion in Washington State on a port expansion instead of BC. Because of BC's reputation as being so poorly run. Maybe that would change under new management. Back tomorrow with the Friday Free-for-All Talkback on News Radio.